discovered a pretty shocking statistic. I want to know if Australia is as shocked as I am about it. Sorry, mate. So, worldwide, according to OECD figures, we consume on average 34 kilos of meat per year. But the shocking stat is what we eat here in Australia. And in Australia, it's a whopping 90 kilograms per person per year. Whoa! After the US, more meat per person than any other nation. So what's all this carnivorous enthusiasm doing to our health, to the animals we eat, and to the planet?
Livestock production would have to be the biggest environmental impact in Australia of any industry.
In this series, I'm going to focus on the 3 animals we eat the most. Wow! I've seen the sheer scale of chicken farming in Australia.
You got to wonder, like, a lot of them are so cheap, how are they producing it?
There's a lot of people that want to eat chicken though, isn't there?
Next time, I'm going to look at cows. This is the moment where you go from the living animal to having meat. But this time, it's pigs.
These are the next controversies to be had in the pig industry. They restrict the movement of the sow.
I'm going to try and show people how their pork is produced.
I wouldn't want to give birth like this.
Is there a better option?
I'll learn how other cultures make the most of the meat we eat. It's like a sausage in search of a home.
It's made for purpose, isn't it?
And it's crunch time for a fast food chain. Will they make the change to free range?
This decision will make or break us.
For the love of meat, let's find out more about the animals we eat. Most people have no idea how the pigs we eat in Australia are farmed. So I've had something specially designed, and apparently it's ready for pickup.
Is this the one you're looking for?
It's not quite what I pictured, but yeah, it probably is. Thank you. I want to show Australians the uncomfortable truth of what it's like to live like a farmed pig.
Right, back up.
It's very pretty.
Oh, it's quite tight. Oh, this is awful. Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
You know what I mean?
You are in like Flynn.
Oh, great.
Big Flynn.
Oh. Lucky you don't need to walk when you're in this suit. I could maybe just roll down. Oh. Which is actually quite a relief. Oh. It might be a bit of a crazy plan, but I want to reveal the truth about the pork we eat. Something that turns out to be more complicated than even I imagined. I'm a pig farmer and a committed carnivore. Hey, Barry. There you go. My pigs are free range, which means they get to express their natural behaviour, just like in the wild. They get to root around for food and grubs and can wallow in the mud when it's hot. And free-range pigs, like mine, are able to build their own nests in the shelters provided. When a sow is about to give birth, she literally builds a nest. I didn't know this till we had pigs. And then she gives birth in that nest. But this system has a downside. Sorry, darling. Around 18 to 20% of the piglets will be crushed by their mother. So in an average litter of 12, I might lose 2 or 3 piglets. It's just one of the realities of free-range pig farming. This never ceases to break my heart when we have the dead ones. Only around 10% of the pork we eat in Australia comes from free-range pigs. The other 90% of pigs are farmed indoors and out of sight in what are called intensive pig farms, which makes it very difficult to find out how most of our pigs are farmed. There is very little video from inside the sheds, and much of it seems to come from animal activist websites. So it doesn't take long if you scour the internet to find some footage, and I found some that says it truly represents the modern Australian intensive pig farm. But I don't know how accurate this footage actually is without having been to one of those farms. Some of the videos are shot and edited by people with an agenda, which is usually to stop us eating meat. They show intensive farms with pigs living in crowded sheds with bare floors, never able to go outdoors. From what I can see here, they certainly cannot express the natural behaviours I see on free-range farms. When pregnant, sows can be put into individual cages called sow stalls to stop them being aggressive to each other. But consumer outcry over excessive animal confinement has prompted the pig industry to voluntarily phase out sow stalls by the end of 2017. And that's why you're going to see a lot more sow stall free labels like this on your pork. But the use of farrowing crates continues. This is a cage designed for the sow to give birth in, known as farrowing, which then protects the piglets from being crushed. Sows will typically spend around 3 to 4 weeks in here. But the big payoff is a far lower piglet mortality rate of around 10 to 12%. So in a litter of 12 or 13, only 1 or 2 piglets will be lost. So is it worth trading off the sow's freedom for the protection of the piglets? To find out, I need to visit an intensive pig farm. My first port of call is the industry body Australian Pork Limited, or APL. They represent Australian pig farmers and seem to recommend who gets into commercial farms and who doesn't. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let cameras into the meeting. Australian Pork Limited told me that there's pig farms in Australia with 40,000 sows. These are farms that probably produce 300, 400,000 piglets a year. I'd love to see the scale of that. Hopefully, they'll help me do it. But why should we consumers care about how we raise our pigs? Do pigs have a clue about what's happening around them?
Henry, you've had your time in the sun.
To find out, I've enlisted the help of Dr. Rebecca Doyle from Melbourne Uni's Animal Welfare Science Centre. Is that a mirror? Yeah.
Yep. So we have a mirror set up in the background.
Using a mirror, Rebecca will attempt to demonstrate how pigs are able to understand abstract concepts and use higher level thought processes.
Pigs are really smart. So is this camel by the looks of things.
Yeah.
But pigs are really smart, and so hopefully we can demonstrate today how they can use a mirror to sort of solve an abstract task. Okay, so Matthew, do you want to squat down and have a look in the reflection?
Sure.
I'm going to put the bowl on the other side.
The test seems simple. A bowl of food is placed in front of the mirror, so the pig can only see its reflection.
Can you see that clearly?
I can see that very clearly.
All right, great. Now the pig certainly can't see it from where it comes in. It's completely shielded from it.
Yep. The idea is to see if the pig can understand it's a reflection and work out where the food is.
We have two pigs that yesterday we showed the mirror to. It's the first time they'd ever seen a mirror. So they've, spent a bit of time exploring it, figuring out that the pig they were looking at wasn't a different pig. And hopefully they'll use that information to problem solve it.
Let's get the pigs.
Go forth and problem solve.
They might have seen the mirror, but they have never seen the food bowl there before. Henry goes first.
Well, let's see what he does now.
Wow. Straight around the corner.
Straight around the corner. So that's the first time Henry's ever seen a food bowl in here. So it's not like he learnt that yesterday.
So
and
that's the problem-solving part.
Absolutely.
So it's not just they know there's a treat on the other side.
No.
It's using the mirror to find the treat.
Yeah, he's never been trained to do that.
Right, wow.
Yeah.
And that was super quick.
Next up is Victor. Again, he has seen the mirror before, but not the food bowl.
So if he wants breakfast, he should know where to go and find it.
Victor gets it too.
OK, so he found his treat.
I'm convinced pigs are intelligent, sentient creatures that can solve problems. A quick search on the internet shows plenty of pigs doing clever tricks and comments about them being smarter than 3-year-old children.
Good to go.
But serious research like Rebecca's can help the pig industry improve both the lives of pigs and productivity for farmers.
Wow.
And that's why now there's a lot of move towards addressing those needs of the animal. If they want something to do, we need to create situations for that, whether it's building a nest or when they're having babies or, finding food or social situations, then we need to try and provide that as well.
But I wonder how much of this kind of research is already in use on intensive pig farms. It's been several weeks since my meeting with Australian Pork Limited, and I've heard nothing from them. I've been chasing Australian Pork Limited for over 2 months now, trying to get access to a pig farm. And last time I spoke to them, they said, yep, no worries, we've got one, maybe two. And then I get an email saying, no, I've got none, and that they want me to chase the pig farms myself, see if I can get access. And what I wonder is, why aren't they open? Why aren't they accountable? Why doesn't anyone want to talk to me? Why is it so hard to get access? Seeing as they won't let me into a farm, I've come up with another idea. I'm inviting some people who have been inside intensive pig farms to discuss what I've only seen on the internet.
What I want to find out is if this footage represents how pig farming is done in Australia.
Much of the footage is impossible to verify, so we have selected what I can only guess is a fair representation.
Okay. I wanted to go to you first, Chris, and ask, does that footage truly represent a traditional intensive pig farm?
I wouldn't say truly represents, but reasonably represents. The farrowing system is very similar to most producers.
Tony.
That's the worst of the worst. Of the 35-odd thousand sows that I consult to, there wouldn't be any that would look like that.
So, Chris, you use farrowing crates to stop, the crushing of the piglets? Is that the...
Crushing of the piglets, yes.
How long are they in the stalls for?
4 weeks, so a bit over 4 weeks at the maximum. The temperature variation is very minimal and everything, pigs love it.
Mark?
Professor Donald Broome, a world expert on pigs, gave a damning report of the systemic keeping of sows in farrowing crates, and that is she cannot cope with that environment. It is so confined, she's actually developing stereotypic behaviours, as we saw with the bar biting of the bars in front, and that's just not a one-off. If you go to these piggeries and see farrowing crates, you will see that the bars in front of them are all bright and shiny and starting to wear, and that's because they're biting them all the time out of utter frustration.
Those comments aren't accurate at all. They chew those bars not in frustration. Only time they really chew them is when you go to feed. They get up wanting their feed, and once they lay down again, they lay down. And most of it is rub marks, not chew marks. I know they can't turn around, but you've got to think of the welfare of the little pigs as well. Welfare of the little pigs is just as important as the welfare of the bigger pig, or the mother. Isn't that a pretty valid argument, saying, well, yes, we might have taken some of the freedoms away from the mother, but ultimately we're ending up with a 50% increase in deaths if we don't do that?
Well, I think we need to obviously see that as a production concern. It's not a welfare concern. I don't know how we could possibly reasonably argue that this is a higher welfare system. You know, the sow who has to go through repeated cycles of pregnancy has to go through this process multiple times throughout her short life, and her only reprieve is the truck to the slaughterhouse.
I think that it should be labelled cage pig. I mean, to me, that actually makes you confront the decision that you've made. The whole thing is about transparency. It's always about how you're going to inform your consumer.
While most people seem to agree the footage does represent intensive pig farming, they are divided on what it means for the pigs. To see for myself, I'm going to have to visit a farm. And at last, I've had a breakthrough. Oh, g'day, Sue, it's Matthew Evans. How are you going? After months of haggling, I have finally found a farm that will let me in. It is intensive, but sounds to me like best practice. They do it intensively. They do it in sheds. They use farrowing crates. These things I've heard of but never actually seen, and I can't wait to get over there. It's taken 4 or 5 months, but I've finally got into an intensive piggery. I guess what I'm really looking forward to is actually seeing what all the fuss is about. What do they do there? Why is it such a big mystery? The farm has been in Sue Middleton's family for over 90 years. Thank you for this. It's an amazing spot.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's a great view over the lake.
It is an intensive farm with 5,000 pigs, but Sue uses what are called eco-shelters. I want to know what they are and what this means for the pigs. The piglets start to live in these shelters once they're weaned, at around 3 weeks old.
We're not pushed for space, so we can be quite generous with the stocking densities.
Unlike traditional intensive sheds, where the pigs often live on hard concrete floors, these open-ended shelters have straw or bedding on the floor that the pigs can root about in and nest. How do you as a pig farmer judge the happiness of your pigs?
A happy pig is a productive pig. So if your production system's working, you know that your pigs are healthy in that system.
The pigs are weaned in social groups that stay together throughout their lives. At 18 to 24 weeks, they're ready for market.
They're going to market tomorrow.
The pigs seem happy here, with enough space to run around and express much of their natural behaviour. Even though it's in a shed, it still looks like a pig being a pig.
That's a pig being a pig.
Being inquisitive, digging.
Absolutely. And the pig's still socialising, so it doesn't have its movement restricted.
But not all the pigs spend their whole lives in these eco-shelters. And it's around the corner that I discover the thing that troubles me most.
Where I'm taking you now is our newest farrowing shed.
Sue has 650 breeding sows, and when they give birth, or farrow, they're transferred to farrowing crates, something I've never actually seen in the flesh. Holy Jesus. Oh, wow.
So these are the things that you hear people talk about that are quite controversial. So they come in here when they're ready to farrow, and then they stay in these crates for 21 days.
At first glance, I find these farrowing crates very confronting. And Sue seems to understand how it might look to the untrained eye.
These are basically, I think, the next controversy to be had in the pig industry. And they're controversial because they restrict the movement of the sow. So she can stand up, or she can lie down, and they're trying to design newer and bigger crates. This is still the best option that we have as an industry.
So 21 days in one of these?
In one of these, and we should do this 2.2 times a year.
Here is the crux of the issue. The farrowing crate reduces the number of piglets crushed by the sow, so productivity remains high. But to me, the 3 weeks of confinement looks like no fun at all for Mum. And you need to keep them because it's about piglet health.
Yes. It's a very, very protective system for the piglets. It's designed to protect the piglets. See, and under there's a little one around the front there. So they're trying to get to her nipple. Now, as she comes down, see how it pushed that piglet out?
While it may not look too flash for the sows, the piglet mortality rate is 50% lower than on free-range farms.
The latest batch where we had 730 born and 680 weaned, so we're still losing piglets. But it's you're not losing piglets unnecessarily through her rolling over.
Right. And the average is 13 per sow.
Born, and then 11 to 12 weaned.
Yeah.
Pound for pound, you can't get away from the fact that free-range mortality rates are higher than our system. That for me means that the sows are as healthy in this system as in an outdoor system at least, and possibly more healthy because we can manage and control their environment. Is that right for the sow? You know, it's almost like a morality question, it's a philosophical question. And what we're all doing as farmers is we're trading off the pros and the cons and saying this is what I'm comfortable with.
Unlike many in the pig industry, Sue passionately believes in transparency and the value of showing consumers how pork is produced in this country.
We think that people who are eating meat need to understand this system, and we're quite transparent about how we produce pigs. We should be questioned on how our production system works. I want people to come to me and say to my face, we don't think farrowing crates are appropriate anymore. And I'll show you why I think they work. And if there's a way we can do it differently and we can do that cost effectively within our business, we're happy to change.
Only around half the intensively farmed pigs in Australia live in eco-shelters like Sue has, with the rest in closed sheds, often without straw or bedding. But this difference is not labelled on the pork you buy at the shops. So for me, the biggest issue on intensive pig farms is the farrowing crate, which prioritises the life of the piglet over the freedom of the sow. But I want to find out what the general public think, so I've brought some real live pigs and a life-size farrowing crate to Melbourne's Federation Square. This thing here is called a farrowing crate. So the idea with this is to demystify how pork is reared in Australia. We're not trying to convert vegetarians. And I'm going to ask people to get inside it wearing a pig suit. Do you want to get in the pig suit, see what it feels like to be a mother pig in Australia? No one. Oh my God. Who wants to have a go? Got one? Yay! I'm on a journey looking into where our pork comes from and how our pigs are farmed. But last time, I focused on chickens. I approached fast food brand Guzman y Gomez to discuss using free-range chickens across their restaurants.
Have you actually considered using higher welfare animals on your menu?
Oh, definitely. But it's just not that easy. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things as you build a business and you have a lot of people that you're responsible for, it's just to make a call like that has, besides the supply chain, I mean, there's a lot of financial complications.
We are fast food, and part of that is being affordable.
This is beautiful.
After visiting one of Lilydale's free-range chicken farms, founder Stephen Marks was inspired to give it a go.
For me, and obviously as a customer for Lilydale, that's very impressive.
But first, he has to sell the idea to his business partners.
Matthew, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you off the farm.
Yeah. Thanks for this.
No, pleasure. No, pleasure.
I feel like I'm sneaking into a possibly private meeting. Don't tell me anything you don't want me to know.
Yeah.
So to me, it strikes me that Stephen might be the dreamer, but you two, the ones who have to make the numbers work. So can it work on the numbers?
Be under no illusions, this decision will make or break us. We use some 100,000 kilos of chicken a month, so the additional cost is enormous. It's $1 million plus impact on our bottom line, and we're most over $1 million.
So the $1 million question is, who's going to absorb the cost?
So chicken burrito, like how much does that cost?
$11.50 right now.
$11.50.
Yeah.
Right. So would that have to move?
No, we're gonna try to keep it that
We're going to
price.
try to keep it down.
Yeah.
And this is where sometimes the research on this is a little tricky, because if you say, look, do you want us to do free range? Are you willing to pay more? A lot of them will say absolutely in research, but when it actually comes to their actual behaviour, quite often they'll end up getting to the shelf and go, oh yeah, well I want to do free range, but times are tough. It's an aspirational thing more than a reality thing. And so I think when you look at the free range element, you've got to look at this as a marketing investment, I think.
So rather than increase the cost per unit, you're saying, well, if a few more people come because they trust us with the food...
That should offset the cost.
That should offset.
That's what we're hoping.
And Mark's comments about investing as a marketing investment is spot on.
Yeah.
It's a risky business plan. Instead of passing on the extra cost to the customer, the business is counting on overall sales going up because they sell free-range chicken.
And that's the marketing side of it. We're going to really educate people so they know the benefits of free range.
People don't know, and we would love to be able to educate people so that they actually see it is worth choosing brands that have animal welfare at the core of what they do.
Will Aussie consumers respond to the bold new plan? I'll catch up with them in a few months to find out. Rightio. I've brought some pigs, a pig suit and a farrowing crate to Federation Square in Melbourne. I want people to experience firsthand the life of a farmed pig. But I need some volunteers. Got one? Yay!
You got your arms through? Great. We're just going to zip you up. Now you're going to be okay to sort of drop down and scooch in? Okay, you right?
What will they think about how pigs are farmed in Australia?
Thanks for doing this, Grace.
I'd like to play you a little video from the pig farm I've been to. Now, did you know that this is the way that most mother pigs live in Australia for the time around them giving birth?
I didn't know that, no, at all.
How did you imagine they lived?
Just out in like the open and more room to move around than this.
Rightio, we've got lots of people around now. Come on up, we want you to get into the pig suit.
There we are. Keep pushing, pushing, pushing. All right.
Very scary.
He's disappeared inside there. Oh, yep, that's it.
Ah!
So she's going to go down onto her hands and crawl into this thing called a farrowing crate.
Did you know that's the way that most mother pigs in Australia spend the time while they give birth and then suckle their young?
No, I had no clue.
No, I try to avoid knowing too much because it makes me upset.
And there's the little one suckling.
I wouldn't want to give birth like this.
Just have a wriggle around.
Tell me what you think of the space.
Very cramped.
Yeah, it's a wee bit squeezy, isn't it? Actually, I have a lot of movement.
Could you turn around?
Oh, not that much movement.
Do you want to see if you can roll over and lie down?
Yeah.
What? That's the way.
Like this?
That's perfect. Okay. Okay, so you can actually see the teats come out the side. Should try and describe what that feeling is like.
I don't know, you'd be scared, I guess, if it was the first time. You wouldn't know what was going on.
So this system was designed to protect the piglets. If you had a choice between protecting piglets or giving the mother what she wants, which would you choose?
It's a tough choice, but I'd probably say, yeah, protecting the piglets.
How do you feel about the use of these, knowing that you could save an extra 1 or 2 piglets?
That gives me a totally different perspective. So with that being the case, I think this would be the better way of doing it. It's worth saving even just one life.
Yeah, I think this is more about profit rather than focusing on the natural expression of the animal.
Is that a good payoff?
It is for the people who sell bacon, that's for sure.
It was an amazing thing to do, like actually bringing the farrowing crate to Federation Square, and there were such varied reactions. It shows that it's actually a really, really complex topic. But what's really good is we're actually connecting people with where their food comes from. So if you're going to eat pork, you actually know how it was produced. Is that a good payoff?
It's hard to say. I mean, I suppose a life isn't lost for the mother, but it's not a very good life, is it? I don't know. Is there a better option?
That is a very good question. In parts of Europe, farrowing crates have already been banned. But are we ready for this in Australia? So I'm wondering, are there alternatives to farrowing crates? So I've come to this research farm run by the University of Sydney to talk to a man who's spent most of his working life researching just that.
This is our main pig shed where we have our farrowing area.
Wanting to find a way to reduce piglet mortality during the farrowing process,
We've probably only got about 12 sows.
animal behaviourist Dr. Greg Cronin developed a prototype farrowing pen. So this is the farrowing pen here.
If we're going to have loose farrowing sows in pens, we need to have an environment like this.
At first glance, this seems to be just the solution I've been looking for.
We have 2 areas. That area at the back there we call a nest area, and we're putting into that area all of the features that would attract the sow in there to farrow, and then within that we can build design features such as the heater, the sloping panels, the roll bars and so on to help avoid the sow accidentally crushing her piglets.
I guess the big question is, does this system lead to less pigs being crushed?
This has more. So
more?
More piglets will die here in total than in a farrowing crate, and of those piglets that die, predominantly they die from crushing. It's not deliberate, it's accidental.
Yeah, of course.
But that's a real downside of this system.
It turns out the high piglet mortality rate has very little to do with the farrowing pen itself.
So what's wrong with this environment is the atmosphere. It's too cold in general, and piglets have the opportunity in that cold environment to get too far away from heat sources. They get chilled, they slow down, then they head for the udder if they can get there because they're very attracted to the warmth of the udder, and then they just can't get out of the way and they can't avoid being rolled on or crushed.
Right. So to me it sounds like the answer to that would be to temperature control the shed.
Yes.
Has research been done to see if you put this system into a temperature-controlled shed, whether it's comparable crushing rates?
Yeah. Well, in Australia, no.
No.
We need to do that.
Even though you invented this crate 20 years ago?
Yeah.
I haven't been able to get the money to build the purpose-built farrowing facility that we need to continue that work.
So while funding this is clearly not a priority for the Australian pig industry, there appears to be no current alternative to the farrowing crate in Australia. But I am genuinely delighted to discover that Danish pig researchers have developed the swap pen, which stands for Sow, Welfare and Piglet Protection, which is already in commercial production. The swap pen is a bigger convertible pen that allows the sow freedom to build a nest. Before she farrows, it is reduced in size and confines her for the first 3 days of the piglet's life, when they're most vulnerable to crushing. It seems to be the solution we've been waiting for. But giving sows more space comes at a price.
So because this pen's about twice the area of a standard farrowing crate, means a farmer within the same shed size can only have half the number of sows.
And someone would have to pay for that and be the end consumer.
Exactly, yeah.
I believe if consumers knew more about how our pigs are farmed, we would be prepared to pay more for pork. But if we don't want to spend more, perhaps we could eat less. And what I'm about to discover could make this a whole lot more appealing.
The World Health Organization says eating too much processed meat can cause cancer.
It's been a month since I met with the head honchos of Guzman y Gomez.
It's $1 million plus impact on our bottom line.
They made the risky decision to use free-range chicken without passing on the extra costs to the customer. You're saying, well, if a few more people come because they trust us with the food...
That should offset the cost.
That should offset.
That's what we're hoping.
I'm meeting up again with founder Stephen Marks at one of their franchises in Melbourne. Hey mate, how are you?
How are you?
Very good,
Good
very
to see you.
Nice to see you. Another Guzman y Gomez.
That's right. This is our beautiful South Yarra store. Come on in.
They've actually done it. I can't believe it.
It's live.
Fantastic. Woohoo!
Free range.
Got the posters? So it's on the board, mate.
Yes. A little bit of information about it.
Yep.
We told you, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
I told you.
You're doing it. You're
Yeah.
doing it. Just this store or just Melbourne or what's happening so far?
So I think because we consume, you know, we use so much chicken, that we wanted to make sure the rollout was properly in place. So we're just starting with Melbourne first. So all of our Melbourne restaurants right now are selling free range.
All of them now?
All of them.
You're right. And what's the plan? What's the...
And then it'll go from Victoria to New South Wales to Queensland, just to make sure that the supply is right. Because remember, all the chicken we get is freshly delivered every day.
At the coalface of the experiment is franchisee Tammy Walker, who's had to buy into the idea that serving free-range chicken will boost sales. So you've got the free-range chicken on your menu?
Yeah, we've had it for a
2
week
weeks.
or 2 weeks now.
Yeah, when customers come in here, what's the response been to having free-range on the menu?
Well, we've had people are asking for it. So people are actually, when they're not just asking for chicken now, because we've got it highlighted up there, they're asking, can I have free-range chicken?
Yeah.
We've had a few people ask, is it really free-range? All our crew are really aware of it. They're really excited about it.
And have you done the numbers? How much extra it's going to cost you?
Oh, it's sizable. The numbers, it depends on quantity. So what you've got to do is really drive up your sales. It's not insubstantial, is the numbers behind it. The cost will make up for itself in the long run, hopefully. So he tells me.
I know, that's what he's been telling me, but I don't own a franchise, so I've got no risk.
But that's the movement. Like, there's no data to support what we're doing. It goes back to what we were talking about. You just got to prove the case. You know, if sales don't move, then it's a bad decision.
But the hope is that more people will come.
Oh, yeah.
It's still early days, but it's now up to the customers to decide if this was a good move for the ambitious fast food chain. Their next step is to roll out free-range chicken across the country. In October 2015, the World Health Organization released the results of a remarkable study.
The World Health Organization says eating too much processed meat can cause cancer, likening the risk to smoking and drinking.
So is that bacon and egg roll really going to kill us?
Over 60% of the pork we eat is eaten as processed meat. So I've come to the University of New South Wales to talk to the chief scientist who chaired a report that links processed meat to cancer.
The study involved 22 experts from 10 countries evaluating 800 scientific papers.
The daunting thing is that when all of the data were put together, scientists were able to say that consumption of processed meat was carcinogenic to humans. And I've got some with me if I could show you.
Yeah, I'd love to see them, yeah.
So red meat is the lamb, beef or pork we get from the butcher, straight from the abattoir. But processed meat, like salami, ham, frankfurters and bacon, have all been treated in some way. So that's meat that's been cured or smoked or had chemicals added to it to preserve it.
When I'm thinking of things that are definitely carcinogenic, I'm thinking of, asbestos, tobacco, things like that.
To your credit, you've named 2 unequivocal carcinogens. I can add a third one, drinking alcohol.
Right.
Okay, each one has to be taken on its merits. At the extreme of tobacco and asbestos, I can be definitive and say 0 exposure. No one should be exposed to either inhalation of tobacco smoke or inhalation of asbestos. End of story.
Right.
In relation to alcohol, consumption of less than 1 drink a day has not been associated with an increased risk of cancer.
Right.
So processed meat is associated with increased risk of cancer, but the risk can be modified by eating less of these products, and the risk is not an absolute. If someone's eating more than 100 grams every day of processed meat, they could reasonably consider cutting back.
In essence, you're probably suggesting that your processed meats are more like a luxury item.
I don't think a luxury item is the right phrase. I'd prefer to say a gourmet item. Let's be positive about this. It's not a matter of striking things off what one should eat. It's a matter of suggesting to people to increase their vegetarian meals, to look at fish meals, to occasionally have poultry, so you're avoiding eating processed meat every day.
So cutting down on our consumption of processed meats could keep cancer at bay. But even after the findings of this definitive study, the scientists think there's an even better way to keep disease free.
The biggest problem about diet and cancer is not processed meat, it's obesity. It is that people just eat too much, including too much meat, and they become obese, and that obesity is a major cause of cancer.
Right. And it's moderation in all things, yet again.
So for the sake of our health, we should eat less meat. And for the sake of the pigs and our wallets, we could learn to use other cuts of meat. Adam Liao is a Malaysian-born cook who knows a thing or two about using pork with a bit of imagination.
I've heard that there's the expression that the Chinese eat everything except the oink.
Absolutely
Is that true?
Absolutely true.
Absolutely true.
Every single part. And to be honest, they're the most interesting parts. The hocks, the belly, the tails, the ears, those kind of things. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Really? Stomachs, intestines, livers.
Right, yeah, I've heard it.
Adam is taking me to a friend's restaurant where he's going to make me a dish that I won't forget in a hurry.
Let's be honest, it's a little bit pooey.
Jesus, that ain't pretty.
If eating higher welfare pork costs us more, maybe we can do other things, like eating nose to tail. I'm helping Adam Liao make bak kuteh, a traditional Malaysian pork broth that uses bits of a pig I normally don't dare try.
So we've got the stomach here, the intestine, liver, some belly and ribs. What you kind of have is all of these internal bits there, with then the ribs kind of holding them all in, and then the belly sitting on top of the ribs there, and that's kind of you could reach into a pig and pull that straight out.
Yeah, so that's actually just one bit out of there in the pig.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, right.
Yep. But the real flavour of bakataya comes from all of these things, and I don't know if you've seen many of these before. Romania glutinosa, I don't really...
It rolls off the tongue.
Palusula, licorice fruit, dried tangerine, Cotinopsis, Chinese.
Available at your local corner store.
You do. If you're not anal like I am and want to make your own spice bag, you can actually go and buy pre-made bakute spices, and they just come in a little pouch, throw them into the water, and you're done.
And that's it. So what do you want me? Do you want me to wash this out? Is that the first thing?
I mean, that's probably the first thing we have to do, get rid of all this fat. If you smell some of the odd bits of pork, they can be quite pungent, you know. They can have quite a meaty, earthy, I don't want to say pooey, but let's be honest, it's a little bit pooey in some of those pieces. But to offset that, you kind of offset that with the fragrance of these medicinal herbs. So how's that going for you?
Great.
We want to get as much of the fat off this one as possible.
The herbs are steeping nicely.
You could clean the same piece of intestine for hours.
When you say you could clean it for hours, you mean...
I mean you.
Yeah. That was quite clear.
It just takes a while, but it is worth it. You know, I keep saying it, but it is worth it in the end.
The meaty bits are blanched in hot water before being added to the herby broth. For some reason, the intestine I find the most grim-looking thing. I don't know why. Well, it's like a sausage in search of a home.
It's made for purpose, isn't it? You don't want to spend too much time thinking about it. And then an hour and a half or so.
If we ate more of the animal when we choose to eat meat, then actually we will be able to farm fewer animals and save money. But I understand this isn't for everyone. I admit some people just wouldn't enjoy preparing some of these dishes. But let's see what the restaurant manager and head chef think of our bakute. So, you and me, first time.
First time.
Bring it on.
Bakutayas. Excellent.
Excited, absolutely. I'm hearing so much about it.
Just used to try the broth. That's gorgeous. Wow. Wow.
I want you to try the intestine as well now.
I actually really love the texture. That little bit of crunch and bite and springiness. So actually, I think that's a really good thing. The funk at the end, I like, but I'm not sure everybody would love. You know, that's a flavour that you just don't have in modern cooking. I like it. So what do you reckon, Michael? Would Sydney Siders go for this dish with these ingredients in this restaurant?
Look, let's be honest, it's a tricky sell. It's definitely not for everyone. But it's flavour first, and you get people eating, trying it out, you know, you tell them what it is afterwards. It's all in the delivery.
You've really nearly tripled the amount of actual calories you can get from the same amount of pig.
Same animal. Amazing. So maybe eating unusual animal parts in so-called nose-to-tail dishes is not for everyone. And the way that we farm most of our pigs so intensively to produce our pork makes me wonder what other options there are for the conscious carnivore. If you buy pork at one of our leading supermarkets, it seems to have 3 different options. You buy the standard one, which is Australian pork. It says on here, sow stall free, which might be sow stall free, but is farmed intensively with farrowing crates. But you don't know if they're grown in eco-shelters or indoor sheds. You buy free-range pork, like the pigs on my farm, where the piglet mortality is higher, but they spend their lives running around outside. And you've got this third one, which says Australian certified outdoor bred. This third way uses outdoor hutches like free-range farms, instead of farrowing crates. Before the pigs are raised in straw-filled eco-shelters instead of closed sheds with concrete floors. If you don't want to fork out for free-range pork, this seems a good compromise to me. But beyond all the food labels and farming systems, I think it's important for us consumers to be better connected with the animals we eat. Brightside Sanctuary helps people make that connection. Run by Emma Haswell, it provides a home for rescued animals in beautiful southern Tasmania. Emma likes to show school kids around the farm and connect them to the animals, something many kids never get the chance to do.
Well, who'd like to meet some animals? Now that pig there, Linny came from a very sad piggery where the police closed the piggery down, so she's very lucky to be here.
Really bigger than you said. Come rub it.
What's the aim with this? Is it to convince kids, to not eat meat, or is it more the social interaction with animals?
I think that we need to all meet the animals that we usually only see on our plate, and people sit down to eat them, once or twice a day, but they don't stop and think about who they're eating. And I think if people knew who they were eating, they would care more about the lives the animals had had. It really impacts on people when they get to cuddle a sheep or cuddle a pig. They start to realise that those animals have emotions, that they're intelligent, that they're sensitive. I see it as I tell their stories and they show people how wonderful they are.
It's pretty clear Emma's got her own agenda, which is to get people to stop eating meat. But those kids had an amazing experience. And while they may never get the chance to visit an intensive farm, I hope this kind of experience will make the kids think harder about where the meat they eat comes from. Join me next time when I explore that classic Aussie meat, beef. And you can find every one of their 32,000 head. We'll try our best.
Why should it be iconic to destroy our natural environment?
We could feed up to 350 tonnes of feed a day. Whoa. When animals eat grass, they produce a lot of gas.
To kill a half-ton animal and end up with 4 kilos of eye fillet, we can't all eat eye fillet.